Well, joining us now is Doug Casey. Doug is a well-known American investor, best-selling author, and outspoken libertarian thinker known for his contrarian views on economics, finance, and politics. In the 1980s, his bestseller, Crisis Investing, topped the New York Times list for nearly 30 weeks, beating out big names like Free to Choose by Milton Friedman, The Real War by Richard Nixon, and Cosmos by Carl Sagan. He's been featured on hundreds of radio and TV shows, including David Letterman, Merv Griffin, Charlie Rose, Phil Donahue, Regis Philbin, Maury Povich, NBC News, and CNN. And his work has been featured in Time, Forbes, People, and The Washington Post. He's also a regular keynote speaker at Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. And Doug went on to write Strategic Investing, The International Man, and several other influential works, many of which focus on profiting during times of global upheaval. He's also written a fiction series with Dr. John Hunt, telling bold, high-stakes stories about assassins, speculators, and drug lords. But since Doug has been so right in the past about economic collapse and geopolitical upheaval, today we're going to be asking him, why does he believe the U.S. is now on the brink of hyperinflation? Doug, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here, although for me, here is out on the farm in Uruguay at the moment.
In where? Where are you?
Uruguay. I'm not far from the junction of the mighty Plate River with the South Atlantic.
Why in the world did you move down there?
It's a quiet, peaceful little country with only 4 million people. And I think we're at a juncture in the world's history where you want to be in some place that's quiet and peaceful and out of the way.
And the United, I mean, this is a bit, I'm just finding out that you're in Uruguay, and I'm feeling a little alarmed because I know you're the guy that knows about the economy and what's happening. And if you've run off outside of the United States, I don't know if this is a good sign for the rest. So I mean, and that's what I want to talk about is, where are we headed? Where's the economy headed? Trump has got a lot of plans. He's been implementing a lot of plans. Are these going to work? Is the United States going to be okay? We hear from a lot of people doom and gloom. From others, especially those in the Trump camp, they say, no, we're building America back. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be wonderful. And here you are sitting in Uruguay. So where are we headed, Doug?
It's not like the only place in the world. I've been to over 155 countries or so, and I've lived in 10. It's just that I like Uruguay for the things that it offers. So, yeah, but it's a good place to be because you'll recall that it wasn't but last week they were plumping for World War III, whether that would occur starting off between Israel and Iran, or maybe between Russia and the Ukraine, which could still spin out of control. Either of these things could.
Right. So where do you think, when it comes to, I mean, we don't know whether or not those are going to flare back up. I mean, my guess is they will. My guess is that Israel and Iran are not done. Israel continues to, I don't think Israel's just going to be happy with, oh yeah, we maybe took out some of your nuclear facilities and that's great. I think they're going to try to continue to do, maybe not direct war, but I think they kind of learned their lesson with direct warfare. Shooting missiles and blowing things up. I think instead they're going to continue with what they were doing, which is assassinations, and just going behind the scenes and assassinating as many people who are influential in Iran as possible. I think they'll do it in a more stealth way going forward. But I think obviously Iran will know who's doing it, and they might retaliate with actual warfare if they feel like war is still being waged against them. So I don't know if that one's over yet. And there are a lot of people who predict that we are still heading into World War III. But whether we're going in, well, maybe I'll ask you this first. I mean, if we are going into World War III, whether it be Ukraine and Russia that flares up, or Iran and Israel that flares up, and it kind of triggers this World War III, where does that put us economically?
Well, we've been on the razor's edge for some time, but I like to look at these things from a long-term point of view. And the big problem that I see is the increasing role of the government in people's lives. Most people don't realize that before the First World War, the US government was about 5% or so of the US economy. It was a non factor, it was trivial. And it's grown and grown and grown until the federal government, and certainly you've got to add the state and local governments onto that, uh, stick their noses into absolutely everything at great expense. They're now 40, 50% of the economy. It's hard to put your finger on exactly how much it is. So this is uh, this is a problem from the point of view of reducing economic growth below what it would be otherwise, and
Hmm.
reducing the personal freedom of people. I'm a libertarian. Uh, I don't believe in initiating force.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, government is all about force.
Hmm.
As Mao Tse-tung, lately one of the world's great experts on government, said, the power of the government comes out of the barrel of a gun. And I think that in a civil society, you want to limit force as much as you can.
Right. But where does that lead us economically? I mean, where are people going to end up? Should we be saving all? I mean, I'm trying to get to, are we headed for? I think one of the things that you've said in the past is that we are headed for hyperinflation. Why do you think we are?
Well, look at the monetary history of the US. Before 1933, uh, we had sound money in the US. People used gold coins, which have real value in and of themselves, silver coins, and even copper coins. Pennies were copper in those days. They're only made out of zinc now. Uh, the government has been spending much more money than it's been taking in for decades and decades. They've made up the difference by printing money. This is done through our central bank, the Federal Reserve. If the government runs a $1 trillion deficit that it doesn't take in taxes, what happens? It sells the debt that it borrows to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve credits the US government's account at commercial banks like Citibank or Wells Fargo with $1 trillion in Federal Reserve notes, which it spends into the society. That increases the supply of money, that raises prices. I don't know if that's simple enough. I don't know if people think about these things very much. Uh, that's why they're befuddled and scared by economic concepts. But that's where inflation comes from. It's not caused by the butcher or the baker or the oil maker. It's caused by the government, which
Hmm.
prints money. And the
Okay.
money in the US is just a floating abstraction. It's not redeemable by its issuer with anything.
The government doesn't really print money anymore, do they? I mean, this is most of the money seems to be digital.
Yeah, it's digital. It's digital. Yeah, that's
And so
right.
they're
In
just able
fact,
to sort of change the ledgers. I mean, I'm not even sure how they do it anymore exactly. How do they add money into the system? They just literally digitally add it in.
yeah, it's all digital. It used to be uh, a matter of printing actual paper currency, but we're look, it won't be long before the dollar, the paper dollar, doesn't even exist.
Hmm.
People seem to prefer using their iPhones and so forth to pay things or credit cards. But this is very, very dangerous because if the money is totally digital, it makes it very easy for the people that control the money, the government, the state, to debit or credit your account, depending on who you are and whether you're in a favored class and whether you're liked or disliked by the people controlling the money. So the direction we're heading is very, very dangerous.
Okay. So what will this mean? Like break it
Well,
down for
it means
dummies.
you're going to have a lot less freedom to do what you want and go where you want in the future because your freedom depends on your money. Okay, if you don't have any money, you can't go anywhere unless you
Right, right,
walk.
right.
Okay, so if someone controls the money, they can control what you have, what you
Hmm.
do, uh, and for that matter, your privacy. If the money is all digital and is all controlled by our central bank, the Federal Reserve, in effect, uh, they know what you're buying, what you're selling, what you own. They know everything about you.
Right.
So it's kind of a kinder and gentler kind of police state where you're really totally controlled, but there may not be a cop who breaks down your door every morning at 6 o'clock to see what you have.
Right. Right. No, central bank digital currency is, or digital currency in general, is dangerous for that reason that it's completely trackable. I mean, it's unlike cash. It's just completely traceable, right? Every single transaction can be viewed
Yeah,
and seen. Um, and it's a total invasion of privacy. But when it comes to so the way that they're going to end up, I guess, break down hyperinflation and what leads us to that for dummies, and then just break down what what are you meaning by hyperinflation? It's one thing to just say, oh, we're going to have hyperinflation. Okay, but break it down for me. Like, what is that going to mean for me? What is that going to mean for grandma? What is that going to mean for the single mom?
it's going to be a total disaster for everybody, but some people at the top of society who have real goods, which can benefit from high levels of inflation. Um, Look, it's it's a question of supply and demand of money. If the government prints money to get what it wants, or which is to say, what the people that control the government want, those goods go to places they want as opposed to where you want. And high inflation devastates the average guy because you can't save money if even if you produce more than you consume and you have a surplus, okay, and you try to save it. How are you going to save it? You put the dollars in your bank account and they're inflated out of existence.
Hmm.
The rate they depreciate at is much higher than the interest that you can get on the money. So your standard of living goes down. It's all about your standard of living. And the standard of living of the US has been kept at a reasonable level by a lot of debt. And that debt is by the debt that people take on is either borrowing the capital that's been saved by other people over the last couple hundred years, or by mortgaging your future, where you have to pay it off in the future.
Hmm.
But the country is very indebted, and uh, at any point, if enough people can't pay their debt, they default. Then
Hmm.
other people that are counting on that debt default in turn, and the whole structure collapses. Well, the government will try to stop that from happening by printing up more money.
Hmm.
But the more money it prints up, the less value it has. What I'm saying, Kim, is that the government should have no has no business at all in the economy or in your money. To me, the government should do only, well, since the government is pure force, it should only protect you from force and do nothing else in the economy, nothing else. That means it should have a military to protect citizens from force outside of the country, a police system to protect people from force inside the country, and a court system so you can adjudicate disputes without resorting to force. The government shouldn't do anything else. But the government doesn't do those three things very well at all. And it
Hmm.
tries to do absolutely everything else, the medical system, the school system, everything. So
Hmm.
it's the world is upside down from that point of view.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, I agree with you on some of that. I don't agree with the education or the medical part because I do think that the government should. I think if you go into, that's a whole different conversation. But if well, in Uruguay, I mean, isn't Uruguay known for having a great medical system?
Uh, it's a small welfare state, okay?
Right, right. So there
It's
you are sitting in a welfare state as a libertarian. Doug, explain yourself.
well, I'm here because first of all, the reason that I'm here, and I also have properties and houses in Argentina as well, And like I said, I've lived in a dozen different countries around the world. Look, in the kind of world we live in today, if you're in a position to do so, you should have a crib outside your native country. Why? Because the financial risks in the world today are huge, but the political risks are even bigger. And throughout history, things can change rapidly. Like if you were in Russia in 1917, you had no idea what was going to happen in the next few years, but it was bad. If you were in Germany in 1933, it was okay until it got really bad. If you were in Vietnam in the 60s, if you were in China in the late 1940s, uh, these things can change. So you want to have, you don't want to put all your eggs in one political basket because
Right.
politics is the big danger we have today.
Right. No, my grandmother knows that quite well. She's in her late 90s now, but she is originally from North Vietnam and had to escape the North when the French with the French War, and then had to and moved to the South, and then of course had to leave the South after the American War, and then went to Iran of all places in the late
Oh,
70s, only only to have to leave Iran in 1978 during the fall of the Shah.
well,
So
she's got some stories to tell. Wow,
she's got
that's
some
great.
stories to tell, yeah. And so she's had to, and so I've always thought, wow, we're pretty spoiled. A lot of us are pretty spoiled to think that it'll never happen to us. It'll never happen. And my grandmother, who's still alive today, has had it happen 3 times in her life. And
Hmm.
it just goes to show what you're saying, that these things happen, and they happen very rapidly, and you think everything's going to be fine, and but then the next thing you know, you're at war, and things aren't fine. So but
Well,
yeah,
it could happen right here in the U.S. because, it's funny. I lived through the 1960s, which was a turbulent time. I mean, people don't realize or don't remember that. Here's a little fact for you. In between 1968 and 1972, there were 4,000 bombings in the U.S. Uh, People seem to have forgotten that. But today, people in the US, the red people and the blue people, if you would, really hate each other. They can't
mhm,
even have a civil conversation. They can't have a meal together. It's much
yeah,
more serious than it was back then. And the economy is on the edge of a collapse, whether it'll collapse through printing trillions more dollars up or whether the debt bubble will deflate and
yeah. Let's talk about
so
that for a second. I mean, what is Trump trying to do? He's doing a couple of things, and I'm wanting to get your take on that. The first thing is this big, beautiful bill, and there are libertarians who say, like Rand Paul, say this is adding money to the debt, so this is a problem. It's not actually reducing. And then the second thing Trump is doing is this tariff war. What are your thoughts on either of those or both of those?
Look, I don't support politicians as a general rule because we don't get the best and brightest people to go into politics. We get the kind of people that go into politics want to control other people. They're professional busybodies. Okay, having said that, uh, given the choice between Kamala Harris and Trump, of course I supported Trump. Uh, he seemed like the lesser of two evils. But uh, And there are things that he said that he wanted to do, which sounded wonderful, like instituting Doge, okay, to root out the corruption and waste in the government. Well,
Hmm.
it looked really great for a while, but it seems like it's going nowhere.
Hmm.
In this so-called big, beautiful bill of his, there's almost nothing that has to do with the corruption and fraud and waste that Doge found. Uh, and anytime there's a 1,000-page bill, uh, it's going to be telling you things that you must do and things that you can't do and how they're going to pay for it all.
Hmm.
So I don't know what's in it. In fact, the people that voted for it or against it don't really know. It's 1,000 pages. It takes a long time to read a 1,000-page bill.
Hmm.
So uh, what Trump should be doing is is eliminating laws, eliminating regulations, eliminating taxes, as opposed to increasing the size of so-called defense spending, which is military spending, from, they say, 800 billion to a trillion, uh, and cutting nothing. So
Hmm.
Trump is just more of the same thing. Although I like his sense of humor. He's fun. It's fun to listen to him talk. So at least I get free entertainment.
Okay, but what do you think of the tariff war?
I think it's a disaster. Why do I say that? Because it's a tax. It's a tax that's paid by Americans. In other
Hmm.
words, yes, you can punish the foreigners because it they can't sell as much, but to Americans. But when they charge a 20% duty, that duty is paid by Americans. And the net result of it is that we can afford less and foreigners can sell less. And if the foreigners can
Hmm.
sell less, well, they can buy less. So, uh, trade is a wonderful thing. And tariffs are just an additional layer of tax. They're going to reduce the standard of living of the average American. And I understand why Trump wants to do this. He thinks it'll bring manufacturing back to the US.
Yeah.
But the way you bring manufacturing back to the US is by cutting taxes and cutting regulations and making it a friendly environment, not by punishing people that can create things better than we can. I
Right,
mean,
with additional tax,
if you
basically.
put a simple example, if you put a 20% tax on Guatemalan bananas, it doesn't mean you're going to have a banana industry here in the US. It just means bananas cost 20% more, and
Right.
Guatemalan peasants get hurt because they can't sell as many bananas. And it's that way with absolutely everything.
Hmm. Hmm. And then, of course, it would have a cyclical effect because if the Guatemalans can't buy, if they don't have as much money because they're not selling as many bananas, then they're probably not buying as much from China. And then the Chinese make less money, which means they buy less from maybe the United States, right? From all these different places. So it kind of ends up affecting everybody. Uh, rather than making us grow bananas in the United States, which we're not going to do, as you say, it just ends up harming the supply chain, ultimately the flow of money and that money that potentially would come back to the United States at some
It
point.
can turn into a mutual suicide pact, is what it
Yeah.
can do.
Okay. Right. Wow. So, so the better way, and I agree with you. I mean, why not just slash the income tax? Why not just get rid of it?
Well, exactly. And Trump was talking about that, but it's not going to happen because he, he thinks that he can finance the spending of the US government with duties alone. The result will be that we'll have no imports at all into this country. The shelves of Walmart will be empty. And yes, we could manufacture all those things in the US at higher cost for a lot of reasons. And it'll take
Hmm.
many, many years to ramp up to that. Uh, Look, what the US government should be doing is abolishing agencies wholesale. They serve no useful purpose. You mentioned medical earlier. Take the FDA. Uh, I think it should be renamed the Federal Death Authority. It kills more people every year than the Defense Department does in the typical
Hmm.
decade. Most of these agencies are self-licking ice cream cones. They serve no useful purpose.
Hmm.
They say they do. It sounds good. Sounds like they're, protecting you, but they're not. They're just employing cubicle dwelling bureaucrats to collect salaries, engage in corruption, and reduce your standard of living.
Yeah. I mean, I agree
Listen,
that the
what
FDA has a lot of problems. I mean, I've been a major critic of the FDA, but I also don't know if getting rid of it is the solution because I do want some sort of a outside body that does regulate, looks into various different snake oils that people are trying to sell. And I want them to say, no, this is snake oil. I don't want them to be able to, I don't want people to be able to sell things that are actually harmful. And I would prefer there to be some sort of a regulatory body that prevents that from happening. But they go too
I
far,
understand,
and that
I,
is an
un-
issue. But I don't want snake oil actually out there.
I understand. But that's really something between you and your doctor to determine what's good and what's not good. And it's a question of taking personal responsibility for your health and your life and not counting on some distant bureaucrat to kiss everything and make it better. I know it's scary,
Well,
but
no,
that's the
it's
only
just
answer
that
because
they,
these,
but the problem with that is big corporations will lie. I mean, they just will lie to people. They'll tell people, no, no, this doesn't
yes,
give you cancer. This prevents cancer. Smoking prevents cancer. What are you talking about? It's great for you. It's calming and you're relaxed and I mean, they can make up anything if there's some sort of regulation on that.
well, that's what personal responsibility is all about. So rather than having Big Brother decide what's good or what's bad for you, you'll have to think about it yourself. And incidentally, I'm not a fan of big corporations. The main reason we have these giant corporations is because of the government. The government essentially controls the economy today, and it doesn't like to deal with little people. They're a nuisance.
Hmm.
Big governments likes to deal with big corporations, and it's a revolving door between big corporations and the government. So I understand your dislike of big corporations. I don't like them either, but they're mainly creatures of the state.
Well, to
So
some degree.
things are the way they are. Look, the root cause of the problems we have today is a massive state. And if you acknowledge the right of the state to control an area of your life, although it may be convenient sometimes or seem convenient, like the FDA,
Yeah.
then then you're then you're opening a moral door. It's a question of not what's helpful or efficient. It's a question of what's right and wrong.
Hmm.
It's basically a moral decision we have to make. Do you
Hmm.
control your life, or does the government control your life?
Hmm.
And when matters of principle are concerned, I don't think you should compromise.
Tell me where in the world, which country in the world is libertarian?
There are no libertarian countries in the world, although right across the Mighty Plate River, where I am now, in Argentina, something of world historic importance happened last year. A chap named Javier Milei was elected
Right.
president of Argentina. And like myself, he's what's known as an anarcho capitalist. He doesn't believe that the government has a moral right to exist, and he's doing his best to abolish it, firing government employees, cutting taxes, cutting regulations, uh, eliminating government agencies, not cutting them back, pulling them out by the roots and pouring Agent Orange where they grew. That's happening in Argentina. I don't think most Americans are aware of it. And the Argentines are happy about it. Argentina was one of the most fascist, closely controlled countries in the world, and it was
Right.
the young people that realized that they were being ripped off that elected Milei. And he's going to do a lot more in the coming when the coming elections are over, because he'll gain control of the Congress, and he can not just do things by executive order, which he's doing now, but by changing the laws. So
Sure.
watch Argentina, and I hope that answers the question.
Well, I don't know if it will because I think with Argentina, I think that the pendulum had swung so far in the state control direction that the only remedy was to slash, 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 slash. But I don't think that Argentina today is anywhere near what anybody would consider a libertarian state. Is it
No, nowhere
becoming
near,
more
but
so? Sure. But
you're right.
I think even the United States is still more libertarian than Argentina at this point because they'd gone so far in
At,
one direction
you're
that,
right.
that's
You're
all he
right.
could do.
At,
So I don't think even
at the
Argentina is
moment.
going to, right at the moment. So I just don't think that Argentina, and it's working at the moment, of course, because they've gone too far in one direction. But I just don't know if it will ever reach the point. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever be more libertarian, even under him, even under Javier Milei. I don't know if it'll be more libertarian in the United States when he's said and done. I don't think it will be.
I don't know either, but the direction is good. Unlike the US, where the direction has been getting worse and worse and worse for many, many decades. And I'm afraid Trump is not changing the direction of the country. I mean, there are some things that he said he was going to do, like Doge, which is
Yeah.
great. Uh, but look, he said he was going to end the war with between Russia and the Ukraine,
Ukraine.
And he could have done it. How? Simply by cutting off arms and money to the Ukraine.
Right,
End of
right,
story. That's
right,
the end of the war. And
right.
as far as who's at fault between the Russians and the Ukrainians, that's a whole other show that we can do. And I've got some opinions on that.
Yeah.
And this thing with Israel and Iran, uh, it's a question of our inserting ourselves into what amounts to a war between the Hatfields and the McCoys. Who's right and who's wrong? Well, we can talk for a whole show about the arguments that both sides make, but it's none of our business, quite
Hmm.
frankly. And
Right.
is Israel the 51st state of the U.S.? I mean, uh, it's like the Israeli government's on welfare. For decades, the U.S. has been giving them about $4 billion a year of welfare aid, plus a lot of weapons. And we give the Egyptian government about that much too, in order to pretend that they're Israel's BFF.
Yeah.
Uh, this is none of our business. We're just
Right.
making things worse.
Yeah. I
The
mean, look, the way
Israelis
that
have to
Trump,
solve their
you're,
problem with their neighbors,
you're right.
not
The way
us.
that we could easily end these wars. I mean, he ran on promising to end the wars. Well, there's a fast way to end them. And that is, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong with these wars. The whole point is America doesn't want to be involved anymore. Americans don't want to be involved. So just end all the funding and say, we just don't want to get involved anymore. We're sorry, but America's for America now. And that would be he doesn't need to worry about negotiating deals, making sure everybody's happy. Screw all of them. Why is he sitting there wondering if Ukraine's happy, wondering if Russia's happy, wondering if Israel's happy, wondering
Right.
if Iran's happy? Who cares? Don't worry about it if any of them are happy. Just cut the funding, and then put the money into America. It's really simple, and that's what he was voted in to do. But instead, it's this:
That's
I'm
right.
going to end these wars by what? Getting Russia and Ukraine to come up with a deal. Why? Why do you need to do that? You don't. Simple. Cut them
Exa-
off.
That's
But he's not
right.
willing to do that. He's not willing to do it.
No, stop bankrupting the American people by sending all this money to these foreign governments so they can fight their wars, which is exactly what's happening.
Right.
And people say, well, a lot of that's coming back to the US in weapons. Well, wait a minute. Weapon manufacturing, I mean, that does nobody any good. And another thing Trump's doing is he's insisting that NATO, which should have been abolished back in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed, but like all these things, it's become a self-licking ice cream cone, a giant bureaucracy that's grown and grown.
Right.
Uh, he wants the Europeans to spend 5% of their GDP on weapons. Uh, against who? The Russians? I mean, this is like asking for trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to paint the Russians into a corner
Yeah.
and pretend to be their friend. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is absolutely insane. Doug, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. This has been an interesting conversation. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to tell the people about what you're doing or how they can find you?
Well, my blog is called internationalman.com because I've been to, like I said, 150 countries. And we have great articles every day on everything at internationalman.com. And I also have a podcast called Doug Casey's Take. It's on YouTube. So those are the two things. And
Okay.
a
Well,
bunch
we
of
do.
novels and a bunch of books. And yeah,
A bunch of books. Oh, well, we do have links down below to your podcast, also to your blog, International Man, and to your website, International Man, and also to where they could find your books. So, Doug Casey, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
pleasure was mine, Kim. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you could check out Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.